Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the news live from SABA satellite channel. In our top story tonight, Al-Khanbashi orders tighter controls to shut down smuggling routes in Hadramaut. Yemen and Bahrain deepen a strategic partnership amid growing regional threats. Naval forces intercepts Iran linked to drone equipment and falls Houthi sea attack. Welcome back. Member of the Presidential Leadership Council and Hadramaut Governor Salim Al-Khanbashi has ordered tougher measures to strengthen state control over the governorate's land, sea and air entry points and disrupt smuggling networks. At a meeting in Mukalla with security, military and customs authorities as well as airport and border crossing officials, Al-Khanbashi reviewed measures to close illegal crossings, strengthen security checkpoints and tighten controls over the movement of goods and cargo. The meeting focused on preventing the smuggling of weapons, military and dual-use equipment, cigarettes, cash and other illicit goods while tracking smuggling routes and networks and cutting off their sources of financing. Al-Khanbashi warned that the local authority would take firm action against any attempts to facilitate, protect or provide cover for smuggling networks for activities linked to terrorism financing and organized crime. Speaker of Parliament Sultan Al-Barakani has called on China to continue supporting Yemen's constitutional legitimacy and efforts to restore state institutions during talks with the Chinese Chargé refers to Yemen, Jiaojing. Al-Barakani praised Beijing's support for Presidential Leadership Council, government and parliament, as well as its commitment to Yemen unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity. Al-Barakani said previous peace initiatives, including the Kuwait and Geneva consultations and the Stockholm Agreement, had been used by the Houthi militia to gain time and recognize its ranks rather than end the conflict. He said the government had exhausted available peaceful options and that restoring the state and ending the Houthi coup remained a non-negotiable objective. The two sides also discussed growing threats to regional maritime routes and international navigation, including Houthi attacks and maritime piracy. Prime Minister Dr. Shaya Az-Zindani has discussed Yemen-UK relations, the latest Houthi military escalation, and the government's reform agenda with the British Minister for the Middle East and North Africa, Stephen Doughty. During a virtual meeting, Az-Zindani warned of the serious implications of continued Houthi escalation for regional and international security, particularly attacks on international shipping in the Red Sea and Bab al-Mandab. The Prime Minister also expressed appreciation for Bahrain's continued support for Yemen, particularly through the UN Security Council. Az-Zindani said Yemen and the United Kingdom share long-standing relations and expressed hope for a broader partnership and coordination. For his part, Doughty reaffirmed Bahrain's continued support for the Yemeni government and praised its efforts toward institutional reforms and state building, expressing readiness to provide support in line with government priorities. Foreign Minister Dr. Afrah Hazouba has stressed that restoring Yemen's state institutions and enabling them to exercise their full sovereign powers is essential to Yemen's stability and the security of the Gulf, Red Sea and Bab al-Mandab. In an interview with Bahrain's Akhbar al-Khalij newspaper, Azouba said the Houthi threat backed by Iran has evolved beyond Yemen's borders, with attacks on shipping, ports and maritime routes posing wider risks to regional security, international trade and supply chains. She said sustainable maritime security begins with Yemeni state capable of protecting its coastline, ports and territorial waters, combating arms smuggling and strengthening the capabilities of the Coast Guard and naval forces in coordination with regional and international partners. Azouba also urged the international community to move beyond statements of condemnation toward practical measures to enforce United Nations resolutions and arms restrictions and disrupt networks that supply and finance Houthi weapons capabilities. Bahrain's Crown Prince and Prime Minister Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa has received Foreign Minister Dr. Afrah Al-Zuba, who delivered a written message from President Rashad Al Alimi to King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. Prince Salman reaffirmed Bahrain's steadfast support for Yemen's security, stability, development, and peace, while Al-Zuba expressed Yemen's appreciation for Bahrain's support for the Presidential Leadership Council, government, and state institutions, including its participation in the Arab coalition led by Saudi Arabia. Al-Zuba reviewed the latest developments in Yemen, land government, and government efforts to restore state institutions amid continued Houthi escalation and threats to maritime navigation. She stressed that the security of Yemen, the Gulf, and the Red Sea is interconnected, calling for a stronger Yemeni Coast Guard and naval capabilities to protect territorial waters and enforce the rule of law in coordination with regional and international partners. Al-Zuba also condemned the unjustified Iranian attacks against Bahrain and other GCC states, reaffirming Yemen's solidarity with the Gulf countries and their right to protect their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Also in Manama, Foreign Minister Dr. Afrah Al-Zuba has held talks with Bahrain's Foreign Minister Dr. Abdul Latif Al-Zayani on strengthening bilateral relations and coordinating positions on developments in Yemen and the region. The talks address issues concerning the Yemeni community in Bahrain, including entry and residency procedures and the possibility of resuming Yemeni flight to Bahrain. Al-Zuba briefed Al-Zayani on the latest Houthi escalation and threats to navigation in the Red Sea and Bab al-Mandab, warning of their impact on international trade, energy, and food supplies and the wider global economy. She stressed that sustainable maritime security requires enhanced Yemen Coast Guard and naval capabilities to protect territorial waters, combat smuggling, and enforce state authority in coordination with regional and international partners. Al-Zayani reaffirmed Bahrain's support for Yemen's legitimate leadership and state institutions, while Al-Zuba welcomed Bahrain's positions in regional and international forums, including the United Nations Security Council. Interior Minister Major General Ibrahim Haidan met with U.S. Attorney Affairs to Yemen Nail Hub to discuss expanding joint efforts to address Yemen's growing security challenges. During a virtual meeting, Haidan praised U.S. support for the Yemeni government and its efforts to promote regional security and peace, as well as Washington's support for the Yemeni Coast Guard. Haidan expressed his interest in building on existing cooperation and expanding it into maritime security, border control, combating irregular migration, and counterterrorism. He said that stronger cooperation in these areas would help enhance Yemen's security capabilities in confronting common threats, including the Houthi escalation and its impact on domestic security and international shipping growth in the Red Sea and the European Gulf. For his part, the U.S. Attorney Affairs praised the Interior Ministry's efforts in government-held governorates and reaffirmed Washington's support for strengthened security cooperation and exchange of expertise to promote security and stability. Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research Dr. Amin Nu'man has discussed expanding academic and research cooperation with Saudi Education Minister Youssef Al-Binyan. The talks focus on activating Yemen's established cultural exchange scholarships approved through the Saudi-Yemeni Coordination Council, as well as the possibility of increasing the number of university sports allocated to members of the Yemeni community in Saudi Arabia. The two ministries also reviewed opportunities to strengthen partnerships between Yemeni and Saudi universities, including academic and visiting professor exchange and the development of a joint research roadmap. They further discussed the possibility of establishing a fund to support scientific research and introducing joint supervision agreements for master's and doctoral theses. Yemen has called on the international community to scale up financial and technical support for countries most severely affected by drought, land degradation, and water scarcity, warning that desertification is shared national and international responsibility. Speaking at the UNCCD COP17 in Alberta, Deputy Agriculture Minister for Irrigation and Land Reclamation Ahmed Al-Zamki said Yemen faces interconnected challenges driven by climate change, drought, water scarcity, and food insecurity. He said irregular rainfall, recurrent droughts and floods, soil and vegetation degradation, and the depletion of water resources are placing additional pressure on Yemen's agricultural and food systems. Al-Zamki urged greater access for vulnerable communities or countries to long-term climate and environmental financing alongside support for restoring degraded land, developing agriculture and water infrastructure, transferring technology, and building national capabilities. He said Yemen is ready to strengthen cooperation with international and regional institutions and partner countries to mobilize resources and implement programs that enhance water and food security and build resilience to climate change. In security developments, naval forces have intercepted a smuggling vessel in Red Sea carrying equipment used in the manufacture of unmanned aerial systems and bound for the Houthi militia. The vessel was intercepted with the shipments originating from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and descent from the Houthi forces. Hours later, naval forces also thwarted a Houthi maritime attack targeting islands overlooking the international shipping routes in the Red Sea. According to the military media, naval patrols detect 5 Houthi boats attempting to approach the liberated islands and engage them, forcing the boats to withdraw. The naval forces also shot down a drone while it was conducted a reconnaissance operation ahead of the attempted movement by the Houthi boats. The operations highlighted the continuing security challenges facing Yemen's Red Sea coastline and international maritime routes. Yemen has launched a new climate monitoring platform aimed at strengthening agricultural planning, tracking environmental risks, and improving food security responses through data and modern technology. A workshop held in Aden with support from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization introduced government institutions and key partners to the platform and its applications in climate monitoring and remote sensing. Participants examined the platform's capacity to produce evidence and data-based reports, helping government institutions and development partners make more informed decisions. The workshop included practical presentations on how the technology can be integrated into government planning and project implementation, while strengthening preparedness and response to climate-related risks and the challenges facing Yemen's agricultural sector and food security. That brings us to the end of tonight's bulletin. Follow us for more updates.